amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
Well, thank you for staying with us, and this morning we told you that our first interview will be looking at the issues and the plight of the abducted passengers, efforts of the government to effect their release, and really what does the terrorists want from the federal government. They say they don't want money and that the federal government does know what they are requesting for. To look at these issues amongst many, we are looking at having this conversation with former Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, Professor Usman Yusuf, who also seems to have traveled with the Islamic scholar Ahmed Gumi to various camps of the bandits in the forest. Good morning, Professor. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, let's first of all start with the call. I'm sure a lot of people will be curious to hear what your journey was like with the Islamic scholar Ahmed Gumi to the various camps of the terrorists in the forest. Now, what was that journey like, and what really triggered that adventure in the first place?
Yeah, this is an old story. We've been doing this for the last 2 years. We went into the forest in 8 states in northern Nigeria, 5 in the northwest, and 3 in the north central. And the reason we went was to listen, because Martin Luther King said, violence is the language of the unheard. And we adults, government, nobody is listening to anybody that has a problem. So that was the reason. Our reason was to go out there and listen. We have lived in this country. We are all Fulani. We've lived in this part of the world with our folks in the forest for generations. What happened? Why are they killing us? Why are we fighting? Why do we have ethnic clashes all over between Fulanis, House of Fulanis, Lucas, Fulanis, Buharis? Something has happened. And somebody needs to ask those questions. Those questions have not been asked. And we went in there, he would listen to all of them. And then he would speak to them in the sternness of voices. That we have heard you. We have heard your grievances. Your grievances are real, but there are no reason for what you are doing. There is nowhere in our culture, in our upbringing, or in any scripture that will support what you are doing. And just like we come to you, we go back to our elected representatives, our governors, and also interact with them and tell them and hear their part. But our purpose is to find peace all across the land. And that's essentially the purpose of the visit. And we have been visiting, we meet Fulani leaders, we meet traditional rulers, we have met with victims, we have met with clerics all across. And the whole idea is to preach peaceful coexistence. We've been to 8 states, 28 more to go. This requires involvement of everybody. There is insecurity in each of the 6 geopolitical zones in this country. We encourage every person in each of the 6 geopolitical zones to get involved in the insecurity. What we have found out is over the 2 years we've been doing this is that in all the 6 geopolitical zones, elders have lost control of their youth. That's why in the northeast, Kani elders have lost control of their youth. That's why you have Kani youth as Boko Haram. And we, Fulani elders, have lost control of our youth. Okay, that's why you see Fulani youth doing all this banditry in the northwest. Okay,
so you are...
And also in the southeast, people elders have lost control of their youth. That's why you see kids that were born long after the Civil War wanting to break this country up again. And we saw that in the southwest. In Lagos, during NSAS, when those kids went berserk, they burnt down buses and ransacked the palace of our Lagos. There was not a single Yoruba elder that could have called them to order. So we've all lost control of our youth all across this country, and elders must come in. On our side of the country, we are doing our part. And we we as can solve our problems. We do not expect anybody from any other region or from the sky or from outside to solve our problems. So we're doing what we must do, and we continue to do that. We've been to 8 states, 28 more to go. 28 more. Because there are Fulanis all across this country in all the cities that sit geopolitical zones. The whole idea is preaching peaceful coexistence with local communities. So that's why we went.
All right. Let me come in here.
It's not the razzmatazzy way going into the forest.
Yes,
it's reaching out and meeting communities and meeting victims. We're meeting everybody. I'm going into a meeting now after we finish this.
All right, but let me come in here because I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear. 28 more states to go. You have also affirmed here on live television that you seem to have understood that it is the lack of control of the youths, by the elders, across the geopolitical zones that have let this canine out to roost. Again, you have also said that yes, that of course, some of these people who have been causing this heartache for Nigerians, severally from the conversations you've had and the visit, seem to also be, part of the Fulani extraction. You mentioned the Fulani headsmen, and they are usually, as we all know, peaceful people. But how do they go from peace to, to catastrophe? And that's what you want to understand. Now, it's been 2 years you had that journey, that conversation. What has been the result? What was the follow-up? Was the federal government also giving preview to some of the recommendations and the demands of these persons who have often been labeled by a lot of people globally and otherwise as terrorists? What are they really asking for? What is the demand?
Right, and we will not go there at the behest of the government or anybody. Right, the federal government did not send us there, neither the military or any agency. We went there because it was our duty to do our part. Because insecurity and security in this country is not the preserve of the military or the government alone. Everybody must do his part. So we went in there to do our part. The government did not send us with anything to negotiate with that. No. We did that on our own. We went in there. So what has been the result? The whole purpose was to open a line of communication and listen to the grievances of these people that are causing all this havoc across the land. Even in your home, if your kids are fighting, you don't go around slapping everybody. You listen to everybody and find out what the problem is. And that was what we wanted to do. And over the 2 years, what we have been able to do is to open the channel of communication before it was shut when we were declared terrorists by the government. That's for political reasons. And what have we been able to achieve? We have an open line of communications between us, the combatant, and we're reaching out to government too. And I must admit, this is a government that is not amenable to listening. This is a government that thinks banditry can be solved militarily, which is wrong. I've said it severally. Banditry is a social problem. All the problems are local. The solutions are local. Big plans from Abuja haven't worked and will not work. And that there is a role for the military, but there is not going to be a military solution to banditry. The role of the military is to provide an enabling environment for dialogue to happen and peace. So, throwing bombs will not solve this problem. This problem will go on till kingdom come if we do not address the primary problem. What are the grievances? The grievances are generational. We that live in this part of the country know the generational grievances of our folks in the forest. Nobody is giving justification to any of these criminalities. And what it has boiled down to is that generations of leadership have not been listening to grievances. The you and I may consider them silly, but God, when folks pick up arms, then you listen to them. Isn't that what happened in South with the been polluting their land and extracting oil for generations. Nobody listening to them. And all of a sudden, when they pick up arms, we created Neutral Niger Delta, we created NDDC. But God help us if the 10.5 million out-of-school children pick up arms, or the millions of unemployed kids pick up arms. Our leadership, the ones we voted in to listen to us, are not doing their job. They are not listening. They are all in Abuja. So we must listen. And even at home, if your house girl is not happy, for goodness sake, listen to her. Listen to her. Be human. Ask her, how is she? Has she eaten? How is her family? Because she's the one that makes your house move. Our leadership do not rule the note of humanity. They don't. They're all here in Abuja not listening, disconnected from realities of our people. Insecurity everywhere in this country is a result of two evils: corruption and bad governance. See that again, corruption and bad governance. All across. There can never be peace without justice. So you must listen to people who don't think are important to us. Your driver is really important to you. Your house girl, your security man. So you are now reaping years of neglect of these people. And somebody told you, we all carried the pregnancy and gave birth of this monster we are now calling banditry and terrorism. All right. You must listen.
Okay.
Government listening.
Okay, I'm sure that the government is listening this morning, because you have said something quite clear. So rather than listen, they were in a hurry to have labeled them terrorists for political reasons. But then, if you look at the definition of terrorism or banditry, it also involves, occupants, occupying several parts of the communities. I mean, look at Niger State and several communities under siege. They have been taken over by the bandits now. Some are paying taxes and levies to these people just so that they can move freely and have safety within their communities. Some schools have been shut down across the northwest. Across Nigeria, people no longer feel safe. We do remember that Commissioner of Police for Kaduna State recently said that, well, the Abuja highways are now free to travel on. But people would listen to that with trepidation, considering what just happened in the Abuja train saga, where we saw, abductions of Nigerian citizens, some of whom are still abducted. Now, the conversation here, we started this with what has happened since 2 years after the visit. Now, I brought that up because this conversation really looks at the number of abductees still with the bandits and how to get them out. What do the bandits want? How do we negotiate their release from these bandits?
So I've lost my audio. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Did you hear, did you hear my question? I am asking now, what's the next phase?
I have you. So what happened in I've lost my audio. I can hear you.
I can hear you.
So what happened along the Kaduna Abuja railway line is should worry every Nigerian. Because what we are seeing, and this is what Sheikh Gumi has been worried about all these years we've been going into the bush, that we need to get to these people before Boko Haram or Islam get to them. With their twisted religious ideologies, that these bandits, the right-hand bandits we saw, do not share. And once you have a marriage between these bandits and Boko Haram, we're in big trouble. And the moment it happened, we knew this is not the job of these right-hand bandits, because they have no capabilities of using explosives. Because the captives that were taken out of the train, they were transported in buses. Mm-hmm. This is the modus operandi of Boko Haram, Israel, not bandits. They know the terrain, they don't need buses. We don't need buses. So these are MOs where more serious trouble today than we were before, because we are seeing this marriage that we fear. And the federal government needs to take this seriously and see a way to tease these bandits away from any alliance with Boko Haram or ISWAP or Ansar or the other one. Because the marriage between them will give them a foothold in the northwest. They have coveted for 13, 14 years. And that has been resisted and thwarted by traditional rulers and religious leaders in this part of the country. So this is a new ball game. The stakes are higher today than they were 3-4 weeks ago. So they have literally now blockaded the city of Kaduna, which is the center of the north. You cannot go safely by road. The road has become the highway to hell. Road is blown up. The trains are there now, laying on their side. And remember, they attempted to go into the airport in Kaduna. Their strategy is going after infrastructure, which is not the modus operandi of bandits. This is classic Boko Haram ISWAP. As we speak today, Nigerians may not know because it's not being reported. The capital city of Borno State, Maiduguri, has been without electricity for 15, 16 months because Boko Haram blew up the transmission line into the city. This is Boko Haram ISWAP. They are going after infrastructure, and we are just doing fire brigade approach. We need to re-strategize. We are more trouble today, security-wise, than we were before now. And our folks that are in the forest, after this attack, I call on the federal government. Nobody in the federal government has met with the families. None. None. This is not acceptable. We don't know what they want, and it is the responsibility of the federal government to engage and get our people out of the forest. There's now 3 weeks, the federal government, nobody has engaged relatives of the victims. We've been meeting them, they are coming to us, they are going to Shekumi. No relatives, and you go to Shekumi South, every day you see people trooping from all over the country that this is happening, my relative has been abducted. No victim will have access to the governor, anything, or to the GOC, or to the police commissioner, because they are all shut from the people, or the minister representing the state in the federal executive council. They come to declare, go to his home every day. We reach us out, now they say, well, we got interrupted with terrorism, our reach is limited. But we still not relenting. We are meeting, we are talking, we are pushing doors open and talking on behalf of victims. Federal government must listen. The Minister of Transportation must address the families of the victims, because it is always tough that this thing happened. And it is irresponsible of the government to not have engaged this. Not only irresponsible, but insensitive. For goodness sake. These are human beings that are in the forest. And this is making noise because these are people that can come to the media and speak. All across the forest, in the north, you have our people to take them hostage. Nobody speaks for them. That's why we are raising our voices, and I call on every Nigerian that can speak up to do that and hold our government responsible. The Minister of Transportation, your primary responsibility is not to be running around trying to declare for presidency when there's problem in your ministry. Sort this out. There's no way you can send yourself in the north when this happened during your stewardship and you're not listening. This is my honest advice to Minister Amechi. It's your responsibility for you to do this and brief the president.
All right. I mean, you have said push the door open, that the federal government needs to listen to the people, that they need to have the milk of human kindness and need to be able to come down to the level of the people. Again, it's almost as a statement saying that the government is, excommunicated from the realities on ground and running around in a 360 circle degree. Now, again, I still come back to the question, there are still abductees in the forest where you have visited these people, and you know what the conditions will be for some of these abductees. Now, the federal government needs to also be able to see these as an emergency. How do we begin to have the conversation to have the release of these abductees? I think that's what I would want to get from you today. We should be speaking to the federal government. The whole Nigerians are crying out. There is a dire case situation of, the immediate need for those people to be released. Women are there, children are there, pregnant women are there. How do we get them to be released? That is the immediate conversation.
Right. You see, AIT now may be no part. Because God Almighty will ask each and every one of us, what did we do at this point in time when our country was going through this? We are doing our part. We don't have guns, we don't have AK-47. We are doing our part educating the world. I'm doing my part educating the world. We all need to put pressure on the federal government, whose primary responsibility, constitutional responsibility, is secure and protect our welfare and our lives. On that count, this government has failed. On that count, this government has failed. We have children all across this country, in the forest. Yesharibu is still held by Boko Haram. Chibok, they fear with Boko Haram. Federal government college, Hauri, in Kebbi State, little children. They are still in the hands of terrorists. And these are the ones we know. There are many more in the forest under captivity by this bandit. State governors want to put earplugs in their ears and not listen. We know about this because it is getting closer to home. It's getting closer to home. And they have the capability to reach out. But all across our villages in the north, we have women, children, pregnant women, the aged, in the hands of bandits and Boko Haram. The rain, the sun, the insects, all of them. Nobody, neither the governor, nor the president, nor the minister of defense, nor the national security advisor, nor the Minister of Police Affairs address the nation. These are our people, and this is your primary responsibility, not building new highways or flyovers, which governments and the federal government think is development. No, it isn't. Development is human development. Leaders of our time invested in us, that's why we're able to become productive citizens. But our governors, our government, federal government, do not invest in humanity. There has not been a crisis center, a crisis desk created for this, for the families of this tragedy to go to. We do not still know how many were killed, how many were abducted, how many are missing. The manifest of the train tells you that there are 362 tickets bought. But on that train, it was reported there were about 970 passengers. That's 3 times the ticket that was bought. This is essentially fraud and ticket racketeering that has been going on for about how long, God knows how long, which the Minister of Transportation used to tell Nigerians. And the government of Kaduna State came out and said that they have been writing to the Nigerian Railway Corporation for them to scrap the 6 o'clock scheduled train from Abuja to Kaduna based on intelligence. None of that was nobody listened to them. So these are lapses from the Ministry of Transportation. But they should be held responsible. The Minister of Transportation must be held responsible. And in some cases, the President will fire him that same day. So instead of bouncing around looking to be President, answer this question that is on your lap. That is dealing with human beings, not your selfish wanting to be President. I cannot see what you to tell this part of the country. I can't. What this is happening. So tomorrow or today, the Ministry of Transportation needs to sit down with the victims of relatives in the forest and listen to them and update them what the government is doing. That is how responsible government and compassionate government do. Not run around looking for presidency, or the president keeping quiet, or nobody listening to them, or the minister of information. I mean, irritating people and saying we're on top of it. On top of what? So please, govern more responsibly and more sensitively than we are seeing. That's all my call to the federal government now. But the primary responsibility is to get our people out safely as soon as is possible, because that's the responsibility of the federal government.
Professor, yes, get them out as soon as possible. People say how, because it also seems as if the federal government has lost the will, do not have a clue on the way forward. And I say that going by what the governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Erifai, said, he made threats to import mercenaries to help with Nigerian security crisis, because he feels that, of course, the number one duty of the federal government, the commander-in-chief, who is supposed to protect lives and property, has failed. And that is also a statement of failure on the part of government, when the governor says we will be needing to import mercenaries to come and deal with the crisis, as against what you just said about having conversations, having an angle to it from a human angle perspective. The Minister of Transport, who you have said, needs to sit down and put his acts together to look at having conversations with the victims. I mean, other clients, some ministers would have, resigned to that fate. But let's come back to looking at what can be done in the immediate. We have seen a lot of call for a state of emergency across some of the states in Nigeria with this dire situation. What can be done in the immediate, outside the minister having conversations with the victims, with the bandits, with those who have done the abduction? What is the immediate conversation to be having with them? Is there an open conversation for negotiation? Do we really have to negotiate with terrorists?
Well, like I told you, the stakes are higher today than all previous abductions, because now what we are seeing is the marriage between Boko Haram, Iswap, and this bandits. And when we came out, the video clips we saw, some families are saying they are not asking for money, and when they came out, the video clips we saw, they are saying the federal government know what they want. And so this is about me. This is about my pay grade. I'm not in the federal government. I don't know what they want. I don't know the dialogue with the federal government. So it's only the federal government, agencies of the federal government that will answer this question. And it is your duty and responsibility, all media in this country, to put the heat on the government, to come and tell Nigerians what is the way out, what are they doing, what are these people demanding, what can you do, what is the way out. That is the responsibility of the government. I'm not privy to the intelligence, I am not in government, I don't know what they are talking about. This is not the rat bandits that want money and then they release people. No, this is a higher stake than before. And that's why we must be very cautious. We must do this intelligently. We must do this aggressively. We must do this quickly. The fact that governors and governments are aloof previously will not work here. So government must get involved, and you, the media, are the government. And we've seen video clips that they say you guys know what they are demanding for. What is it and what are you doing? I have not seen anybody in the government that comes to any media place to explain. It is not the job of the military to dialogue or to explain. Neither is it the job of the police. We are in a democracy, and it is our electoral representative, and they are appointees that should be addressing the nation. It is the president, the minister of defense, the national security advisor, minister of police affairs, the minister of transportation. We need to see them here. We don't want to see double-ship or any additional. That is not their forte. There are people that are given that part of the administration to administer, and they should come and talk to us. We don't want to hear any written report or report from media advisors. No, this is we deserve better. So the federal government needs to come and tell us what these people are looking for, and whether they need to get them out safely. And for the Ministry of Transportation to open a crisis desk, either in the office of the National Security Advisor, so that relatives can go in there and be briefed daily. We don't need to know publicly what they are negotiating, but relatives need to be assured that the government is doing something. And the fact that the Minister of Information coming out and saying we are on top of this is not reassuring, because they've never been on top of any insecurity in this country. Thank you.
Well, Professor, the U.S. Department just recently announced that they had cleared the sale of 12 AHZ Cobra helicopters, attack helicopters, to the Nigerian government to be able to use to fight insecurity. And apparently, I remember that the lawmakers lifted this after they had concerns of human rights concerns. Some time ago, the deliberate Democrats and members of the parliament in the U.S. said that the government was leaning towards dictatorship, and they were worried that these defense mechanisms would not work because the government was not having conversations that were key with the government, with the Nigerian people. But these monies released and these military wares that are being given to the Nigerian military seem to not meet the target, because what we still see is an escalated portions of insecurity in several communities. Now, do you think that the military is really what it should do in terms, because again, the last resort is the military if we cannot see the strength of the policing force within this community? Do you think the military is well equipped to handle this issue?
No. Yeah. Good. I mean, I've said it before, and I will say it again. The military is brought in to handle problems that it's not trained to do. Essentially, what the military is doing now is internal policing. It is not trained for that. It is trained to protect us from outside aggression. This is the responsibility of our police. Well, let's look at the military. How many boots on the ground do we have? Before the Nigerian Civil War, the Nigerian Army, the strength was 10,000 or thereabout. At the end of the 30-month war, we had over 250,000. Now, how many boots do we have on the ground? The Nigerian military is spread all over this country, deployed in 34 out of 36 states. They have to outfires everywhere. And even in some places, they are even asked to come and get involved in matrimonial issues. And the government is looking at this in the military way. This is not a military problem. It really isn't. I've said it, banditry is a social problem and not a military problem. And there is not going to be a military solution to banditry in Nigeria, even though there is special strategic plan for the military. So the federal government must listen and address the primary problems locally. But going and saying, oh, we talk to them in the language, we understand that. No, we don't get it. They are now talking to us in languages we do not understand. Lethal. Federal government needs to listen and address this problem as a social problem. Is going to be cheaper. It's going to be more endurable than all this military hardware. We are over-militarizing security in this country. By that I mean unemployment is a security issue. Poverty is a security issue. Over 10 million children out of school is a security risk in this country. Children, hunger and poverty is a security issue. 2014, a 50-kilogram of rye sold at 7,000. Now, 7 years into this government, it's selling close to 40,000. And the minimum wage remains at 18,000. That is in states that pay minimum wage. That is in people that have jobs. That is in people that have jobs. So people are suffering. So when you have poverty, when you have easy way of making money as bandits, I mean bandits in some places in Zamfara has been reported by the report of former IGP MD Abubakar, they have as much money to pay informants, $500,000 naira to give them information. So we have money in the midst of poverty. You go all over the place. Governors in all the 36 states have emasculated local government. Everything is taken into the capital. There is a sea of poverty in all the villages in all the local governments that have been made redundant now by the government, by the state governments. So when there is poverty, what do you want people to do? You go to many villages, I know in Katsina, you go to many villages, and it's not only in Katsina, it's reflective of many villages. You bring out 1,000 naira, go into the village square, nobody can give you change. Because people do not have the change. Price of food is soaring, there is poverty, the value of the naira has dipped. People buy kerosene, people buy diesel, people. So, the federal government needs to address human capital development, poverty, needs to address corruption, needs to address bad governance. Unless you address this, insecurity will continue till the end of time. Good governance is the thing, and we're not seeing that. Politicians are disconnected from realities of our people.
Absolutely.
In the midst of this insecurity, the worst insecurity of our lifetime, politicians are disconnected and only looking, scrambling for office for 2023.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor. Professor Usman Yusuf has been on our show. We've been talking about the plight of the abducted passengers, what the role of government should be and how they should effect their release, and conversations with the terrorists and what they really want. We want to thank you so much for your time this morning, Professor. It was good and insightful to have you, as always.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.